Good morning, good morning, good morning, and you are welcome to this sunny, beautiful, and lion-filled morning here in the Sabi Sands in South Africa on Djuma. We have 3 members of the Nkuhumas still busy with their zebra kill, and there's 8 hyenas that we've counted that are milling around in the background. I am Noelle, and on camera I have Vildi. Good morning, Vildi, and this is quite a way to start our day. So it's really interesting. The lions are just here, and they're resting full belly, just the 2 adults and the 1 tiny little cub, and still 8 hyenas feel that they cannot come and interfere too much. Now, they've been running around in the back, and unfortunately they've gone just behind this large bush here, but I'm hoping that they decide to come out, and they've kept about a 50-meter periphery around the lions the whole morning that so far whilst we've been here. Now, the kill is just to our left-hand side, or what's left of the kill. There's not a huge amount left. There we go. Lots of flies. Very, very little left to eat. And Vildi and I were just chatting about the fact that even with this many hyenas and so few lionesses, and with the tiny cub, that they still don't want to give it a go. Now, if this was 1 lioness and her cub, I think that they would try and come in, those hyenas, but I think that 2 lionesses is just a bit too much for them. Now, as the sun's peeking out over the cloud cover, we have vultures who are also here, beautifully in the dead leadwood tree, sitting there in the nice sunlight. And while we're busy waiting for this light to peek itself through just a bit more, James, I believe, is over with Madame Thandi and her gorgeous little cub, so let's head on over to him and say good morning.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this end of the magnificent sunrise safari here at Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Great Kruger National Park of South Africa. That is Thandi. My name is James Hendry, and we're going to be spending some time with Thandi and her little tiny baby cub today. Please do talk to us using the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. Otherwise, you can talk to us using the chat stream on YouTube. Why, you might ask yourself, is this cretin talking to you with such a quiet voice? Well, it is my impression that Thandi does not like the sound of the human voice, and that is why she gets a little irritated with us. And so I'm going to speak very quietly. I'm also going to sneeze now. Oops. And there comes the little cub. Here comes the cub. Oh, look. As the light peeps out. Now, I'm told that it is 69 degrees Fahrenheit, 21 degrees Celsius. And the one most important thing that I have not told you yet is not the name of the cub, because it doesn't have a name yet, but the name of the person bringing you these magnificent pictures. That is, of course, David Eastaugh. Now, it's a long time since I said David's surname. That's largely because it is very strange indeed. Eastaugh. I think it's... What strange origin is it, David? It's French, is it? How very strange. Yes, anyway. Let us not worry about French surnames. Let us worry about this magnificent leopard and her cub. This excites me greatly. I haven't spent any time with them. Oh, it's so sweet. I've got 1 or 2 views of this little thing before, but never anything like this, and I've been watching with nothing but immense jealousy as my so-called friends have been enjoying views of her playing. Isn't that just the most precious thing you've ever seen in your life? Oh. Mr. T, you're wondering how good Thandi's hearing is. The answer is absolutely fantastic. They can hear, see and smell beautifully. I'm very pleased that she's just quiet. It is flicking though, and she did give us 1 or 2 little hisses earlier today. I mean, we're a long way from her, a good 40 meters or so, which is about 130 feet. I'm just going to tell Aubrey on the radio that we have relocated her. In fact, I might not. I might just let him come in here, regardless. What an amazing start to the day we've had. Lions, leopards, and now with the great Stevovo elephant.
Good morning and welcome. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we've got an elephant bull just down here by the dam. My name is Steve, and we've got Seb on camera. And once again, we're joined by Herbie. And we're not far from camp. It's a wonderful start to the day. 21 degrees Celsius, 62 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a fantastic morning. We had a little bit of moisture last night. 69 degrees Fahrenheit, my apologies. And we've got a wonderful elephant bull. We're going to see if we can get a little bit closer to him here. We're going to keep very quiet. It's important to use cover when you approach these animals. This big fallen log here is going to be perfect. Nice big elephant bull. From a distance he looked a lot younger than he is. But now we're about 40, 50 yards from him, and he's quite a big boy. He's just been to the pan, probably having a little bit of a drink. And even though it's not that hot, he's still flapping his ears, which is what they do for cooling down. Should try to come around some more. Gonna come around, get a visual, Herbie. Go this way. Elephants are very intelligent animals, and pretty sure he knows that we're here. But being a bull, they act very nonplussed about this sort of thing. You can just see how he's kind of look at me over his shoulder like that. You can see a lot of people think that that means the elephant is completely unaware. Look how he's now turning the other way. He's now looking the other side. Now, elephant bulls are very relaxed, generally on foot. They are often the best individuals to walk because they've got a name to uphold, and they're not willing to throw that away and act like a child or throw any sort of act like a child or throw any sort of tantrum. So often you'll find elephant bulls might be walking directly towards where you're standing, and he'll just sort of veer a little bit around you without showing any form of negative behavior. He's slowly. It's a coughing morning, Herbie. What a beautiful start to the morning. As he slowly meanders into the bushes there. Becky, this is wow, and this is beautiful. This is one of the reasons why we do this. Being on foot with these large animals, it's not the same as being in a vehicle. There's no safety net around. We have to be very aware of our surroundings, our escape routes. Not that I'm afraid of this elephant, but it's all about respect. I wouldn't go running in there to try and invoke a reaction. Having an elephant charge you, as exciting as that can be, it's not something we try to create. It's not something we try to invoke at all. So we're going to see if we can follow this guy for a little bit longer. And while we do so, Mr. Hendry, I believe, has found that lovely leopardess.
Well, we haven't moved from where we were. The little cub is now suckling, and of course, at just over 9 weeks old, she's coming to the point at which weaning is going to start. And so you've already seen her eating a little bit of meat of late, and her milk reserves, she should wean around about 3 weeks, at least 3 months. So in about 3 weeks or so, she should finish. Cheetah, you say have we done something to Thandi? Is that why she dislikes us? No, Thandi's always been a bit cantankerous. I'm not going to try and say that there hasn't been some insensitive driving around her. I really don't think from us. I think everyone in our team has been really uber sensitive with her. And one of the reasons is because we do spend these days a bit more time with her than anyone else does. But people who don't know her, who don't spend extended periods, don't understand the things that make her irritated, that make her cross. And the other thing is that, of course, we've got long lenses on these cameras, which means that we can park a lot further away and still get very nice views. Whereas if you are driving a vehicle and your guest has brought with them a sort of Christmas cracker standard pair of binoculars and a disposable camera, well, you've basically got to park on top of her in order to get a good picture. Now, as we've seen, a lot of cats really don't mind that. Leopards and lions and cheetah. But Thandi is not one of those. She finds that sort of thing distasteful and disrespectful, and so that's why she gets a little upset, especially when she's got a cub. I saw Karula do the same thing, though. Now, Karula, for those of you who don't know, is Thandi's mother. And she was tremendously relaxed. You could view her on foot. She didn't worry too much. But there was once or twice people got a little close to her in vehicles, and she gave them what we call a nasty rev, which means she came at them growling and shouting. Normally, when the guide involved came in talking loudly, or his guests were talking loudly and moving around on the back of the car. So I think there are ways of reading the body language. I mean, she is very clear when she's not happy. She will give you a little hiss, a little growl. But it's not only with the cub. I mean, I parked with Vian once. She'd just had the cub, but she was a long way from the den. She'd just been finishing a meal, and she was resting in the shade. And we parked, I'd say 30 meters from her, which is about, call it 100 feet or so. And she just was not happy. So we moved away a little bit more, changed the angle slightly. I told Liam to not move on the back of the car quite as much, and we spoke very quietly, and she relaxed. So she is just a bit cantankerous. All right, we don't really know where to look this morning, but not far from here, on quarantine clearings, we have got the lions and the hyenas now with Noel.
So some of the hyenas have decided to come a little bit closer, but not more than about the 50 or 60 meters, 50 or 60 yards that we were chatting about before. Now, Vildi and I have been sitting here and talking about the different clans of hyenas that we've seen interact with different lions and in different places. I have a very dear friend who works in the Selous in Tanzania. It's one of the largest wilderness areas on the continent while in sub-Saharan Africa. And he routinely sees a large clan, chasing away lions, male lions and female lions away from kills. And then we're talking about here, as we were saying before, just the two lionesses with the cub, and these hyenas aren't chasing them away. And then Vildi was bringing up some lionesses over elephant plains that used to chase off a big clan of hyenas that side. Elephant Plains is just to our west. And I was just chatting about, I think it has a lot to do with personality, but I also think it has a lot to do with learned behavior. And then we were also chatting about sort of bravado and how much you actually believe in yourself as, say, the lion and or the hyena to be able to chase away something that is much larger than you are in a scenario where you shouldn't necessarily win. And it's interesting how in a small space like where we are in the Sabi Sands to a large space like in the Selous, and then also up in the Mara, you get a lot of hyena-lion interaction and how it all changes completely. So it is the same species of lion and it is the same species of hyena, but very, very variable. Very similar to humans. We are the same species of human across the world, but we all react in different ways and behave in different ways in different scenarios. Now, this cub has been wandering around a little bit, getting up and lying down and getting up and lying down. I just think that it is the most uncomfortable little lion cub that you've ever seen. Its belly is so fat, and it's just trying to find a place to be that is comfortable. But just like you, if you eat too much, and it's also, oh shame, it's moving away to go to the toilet. Good lion. The females were just urinating right next to each other. That cub has managed to go off and find its own little special place. Now this female here has got a big nick in the ear. I was chatting to Vildi. I was saying, oh, maybe while they were feeding, and Vildi was saying when they were watching yesterday that she wasn't really allowing the other lions to eat for a long time before she had finished. So it could be from that. It could have been from the hunt itself, or there could have been some interaction that we just didn't see while we were all sleeping in the DRC last night. Now, I think because there's not much left on this kill, they'll probably be here for most of today. Today is going to be a very hot day, and then definitely tonight they're going to start moving on. They might even do it this afternoon, go and grab something to drink at the dam in front of Djuma Lodge there. Cleaning off all of the sand and bile. This one's keeping an eye on her cub, just to make sure that, listen. She's calling to it like, don't go too far. And it was very, very low, but behind us you can hear the cub just sort of did a little grunt like, oh, Mom, I see you, but I'm too full. I don't want to move. This lioness can fit about 9 kilograms of meat in her stomach at one time, so about 20 pounds of meat. And that's one of the reasons why they look so full and have it's difficult for them to move after they eat. Now, since our lions are lying down and not doing too much, let's head back over to James, whose little Thandi cub is busy being extremely playful.
Well, so playful that she disappeared. In fact, they are disappearing. I don't know where they're going. I'm just going to keep an eye before we move. There she goes. She's coming up. She's in there. Can you see her, Darth? I think you're slightly unsighted there. She's just inside there. She pricked her ears up, and started to move towards this area. And I wonder if she hasn't heard the footfall or the hoof fall of a duiker. Something that she could eat. The cub was following, but I don't see her continuing up the hill behind her mother. Look how beautifully hidden she is in there. It's like a little drop of gold with black spots, isn't it? Something about that golden colour that just inspires such excitement in human beings. Yeah, she's definitely heard something. That's why she's moved. Now, what that is, I don't know. I thought maybe it was the incoming of a hyena, but I'm not sure. Okay, we're going to wait and see what happens here. Let's go back across to Stifofo, who is still on foot with his elephant.
Yes, folks, we are on foot. We're right next to the lodge. You can just see it in the background, and this is a very big elephant bull. I'm trying to keep my voice very, very low. I'm sure he's aware that we're here, but he doesn't want any confrontation, and we're giving him lots of space. Wonderful to have these guys on foot. One of my all-time favorites is elephants on foot. He's a beautiful big bull. He's probably in his 40s. And it just amazes me always how quietly they walk. And there you can just hear the branch of his back moving past, but a huge animal. 11,000 pounds, probably 5,500 kilograms. Just disappearing into the bush there. It's magical. start to the day. Just going to see if we can come around him again. There's a little pan up ahead. Might be heading towards that. Some people drink coffee in the morning to wake up. Elephant on foot does it for you in moments. It's just moving through a little bit of a tamboti thicket. Herbie's leading the way. I'm enjoying it too, folks. I do enjoy walking far, but don't have to walk too far. Becky wonders if elephants have good eyesight. Their eyesight is probably a little bit worse than ours. Rely more on smell and hearing. Doesn't mean their eyesight's bad. Elephant bulls are far less attentive than females because they've got nothing to worry about, so they're not really looking for anything, but anything bothers them in the ear or the nose, they will react to it. But you can get quite close to bulls because they're not as sensitive. Things that move around them don't really affect them. They have no babies to protect. So yeah, their eyesight's not bad. It's worse than ours, but it's better than most of the other big game like a rhino and buffalo. Okay, we're going to carry on through the thicket, just see if we can find this big beautiful boy again. And while we do that, I believe Noel has got some vultures.
So after the little cub went to the toilet, the hooded vultures have all flown in and are busy eating well, it's all gone now, but eating the scat. Hooded vultures are known for eating predator scat, not just off of kills, and you'll sometimes see them perched above lions or wild dogs even, waiting for them pretty much just to go to the bathroom before they come down. So the ones with the pink around the face, those are the adults. The other ones are the juveniles, the teenagers. And as they were flying in, the lionesses were getting quite perturbed by this, so they got up, they did a little bit of scent marking, and then the lioness that's in the back there with the kill has moved the kill a bit. I think she was just a bit too annoyed with all of the activity. And now we're going to watch her feeding on what is left. So she's just basically pulling the tendons and sinew off. There's tiny bits of meat left, but nothing huge. And so she'll be licking with her tongue. There she, yes, and then pulling with her front teeth and then chewing with her side teeth with her molars using that carnassial shear. Hey Jen, you're curious to know if the vultures would consider the cub fair game. Because the cub is still... Oh, sorry. Listen. No. Oh, sorry, the hyenas. Excuse me. The hyenas fair game. Yes, definitely. Yes, they would definitely consider that fair game if they were able to get close enough to the cub. They would definitely kill it, and then the hyenas would also eat it. Although I don't think those lionesses would let this happen, that's for sure. But even if they managed to, let's say these hyenas were more adept at coming in here and had more bravado and chased them away, if they managed to injure one of the lionesses and injure it to a point where she really couldn't do much, they would definitely also eat, she's calling the little cub. They would eat that lioness as well. She's calling the cub, going, come, come, come. He's not listening at all. Or she's not listening, excuse me. So Villy and I were chatting about how much can lions eat. And Vildi was just talking about how he'd heard that sometimes lionesses can eat a bit more and how much it's dependent on body weight. And he's very correct about that. And we were chatting about sort of averages of numbers, and it really does depend on the size of the lioness, size of the lion. He was talking about one of the Matimba males that used to be in this area who could finish off half a buffalo kill by himself. So that finishing off of half the buffalo kill by himself would have taken quite a while. And a lot of the numbers that were given, it depends on the books that you read and the researchers that you're doing, and it usually has to do with per sitting. But he's correct in saying that across the board, in multiple days whilst they're feeding, the amount is quite large. So I believe, Vildi, if I'm correct, it's 20% of the body weight of the lion over the 3 days, not just in one sitting. 20% of the body weight of the lion or lioness in one sitting, and then let's times that by multiple days. So let's say 3 or 4 days. So that's quite a bit of meat that they're fitting in. So if you've got a smaller lioness, about 170, 180 kilograms, it's obviously smaller, and then larger if it's a larger lioness. All right, this little cub's going to go cuddle with Auntie. So let's head on over to James with Thandi and see what they're up to.
Right, what she's done is she's moved out of the drainage line and up onto this little log in the sun. I don't know what she's looking at or what has arrested her attention, but she lay there for a little while. The cub is just behind her, and I'm continuing with my theory that she doesn't like the sound of our voices. We're closer to her than we were before. She gave us one look, but there was no snarl or irritation with it. And so I'm just going to continue talking very quietly like this, and I'm sorry if it is a little difficult to hear me. The cub is just behind her on the other side of the log, and we're hoping that she will come up into the sun. Oh, there's a helmet shrike. There we go, to the left-hand side. They're just coming to shout the alarm at the leopard. Isn't that wonderful? And now all sitting on the tree above her, just giving their clicking alarm call. Click, 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 click. Can you hear it? I don't know if you can hear it. It just sounds like, it sounds like very dim firecrackers. Click, 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 click. Now they've gone off. The cub is down there somewhere, and I'm hoping desperately that she's going to come up and expose herself in the golden light, because that of course will give us a lovely cliched photograph of this magnificent leopard cub in the sunlight, which I have yet to get, I might tell you. I woke up this morning thinking, please, today must be the day I get a decent shot of this little cub. Now the other thing is that we've asked David, sitting on the back of the car, to sit as quiet as possible, so you're not going to see a huge amount of movement from the camera when we're this close. Philip, you're wondering about a muzzle spot pattern yet, and if we could see it on the cub. Yes, the answer is that we could. We're just going to be a little bit quiet now. If she gives us another look like that, I'm going to back off. Philip, you can see a muzzle shot, or muzzle spot pattern on the cub, but it's very, it's indistinct, because although she's born with the spots that she'll have for the rest of her life, what happens is that those spots are very close together when she's little. It's a little bit like when you've got a pattern on a balloon. You know, if you buy a balloon that's got something written on it or drawn on it, here's a little cub behind her now. That balloon, you can almost not make it out until you blow the balloon up. Do you know what I mean by that? It's exactly the same as this cub. She's got all of the spots that she'll have until the day she shakes off the mortal coil. But as she expands, so those spots will move apart from each other and make it much easier to see the spot pattern above the muzzle. But in theory, we could probably guess what that spot pattern's going to be if we have a really good look of her not behind a tree or fast asleep. She's too sweet. Oh, look. Thandi has seen something. In fact, I suspect she hasn't seen so much as heard something up in the bushes there. Okay, I believe that we are not going to sit here. Well, we're going to sit here, but you're going to go across Steve Orville, who has left his great grey thing and apparently has found a small green thing. Goodbye.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, James. From the very large to the very small, we have found ourselves, or should I say Herbie has found us, a crab spider. Isn't that glorious? Looks quite like a crab, doesn't he? But it is in fact an arachnid with 8 legs, and he is very camouflaged on the leaf of this little snakebite bush, and obviously waiting as a predatory animal would do for any sort of insect to come along, pollinate the flower just above it there, or just move along and do it, whatever it might be doing on the leaf. A moth coming to lay its eggs, caterpillars feeding, any form of insect that might come along will fall prey to this very camouflaged and very interesting looking spider. How's it coming up, Seb? That's nice, eh? Yeah. You can see the dew on the leaves, folks. We've had a little bit of rain last night. Not a lot, just enough to wet everything. And as we're feeling the cloud cover move away, we are... Oh, Seb, I wonder if you can get that bird at your 3 o'clock. It's just sitting on that branch there. You can hear it in the background. It's a tawny-flanked prinia. He's displaying beautifully for us just there. Wonder if you can get it. Oh, and he's flown off behind Herbie. Very characteristic. And I'll quickly show you a picture. He is quite a beautiful bird. He always sits with his tail very, very well cocked up. It almost sounds like 2 stones being hit together, but not to be confused with the greenback Cameroptera, which is more short bursts. This guy is like a long-winded non-stop, whereas the Cameroptera is like 4 or 5 very hard stone hits. Prinia, tawny flanked, very common bird in the area, not always seen, but most of the time it is heard. Let me get the light on there. Are we getting light on there? It's not great, eh? Maybe I can up my light here. Sorry folks, I have got my phone on a very ultimate battery saver mode. Let me take that off, that'll make things much better. There we go. There he is. Technology. There is a beautiful... See how he cocks that tail? It's one of the small LBJs we get around here. Little brown jobs that are quite difficult to identify, but the way he cocks his tail and that very tawny on the wings and on the tail, very, very characteristic of this bird. He's still calling, and if you didn't hear, I'll play it again for you. There we go. Marvelous. Well, the clouds are starting to clear and we can feel the humidity rolling in. It is getting quite warm, and we're going to be going up to the Mara with Jamie and some elephants.
To the Masai Mara, so you've been enjoying the amazing wildlife in South Africa. Now we'd like to share some of the special animals in Kenya as well. Starting off with this magnificent male elephant who's enjoying the peace of what is a truly beautiful morning. There's low-lying mist everywhere, the air is crisp and cool and clean, and of course, because it's the Masai Mara, despite the fact that it's the dry season, everything smells like mud. I definitely can't think of a better way to start off my morning. So good morning to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this morning Adrian is on camera with me. He has not been on camera with me since his interview, so it's a real pleasure to have him on the back joining the Safari Live team. I have no idea what Kirsty's saying most of the time, so I'm pretty sure I'm live. If I'm not, well, I suppose no harm in a little bit of extra practice. So if you are sending through your questions, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and I will do my best to answer them. I can hear all of the Mara team perfectly clearly. It's just obviously connection between us and Djuma. All right, there are about 5 vehicles coming up behind me with spectacular good timing, including one of our own, who are busy filming Ralph. That's payback for all the time he called me Taylor. Rolf, who is on the Skyship balloon this morning. So let me just scoot on past this Ellie and move up so that we can make some space for them. Good morning. Hello, mister. Okay, we're not going to keep you away. I think I got what Kirsty is telling me. She's telling me not to keep you away from Thandi and her cub for too long. So off you pop back to South Africa to enjoy that bundle of fluff.
The bundle of fluff's just gone behind the bush. Thandi went back down to exactly where she was before. We parked a little bit closer, with a kind of open view down into the drainage system, and she sat there for a while, and then she gave us a bit of a hiss, and so we moved back to where we were originally. The cub now adventuring slightly, which is very nice if you're a cub to adventure. She's just gone up there into those bushes. That's quite far away. I mean, that's about... she's about 50 meters away. I mean, that's a good distance. About 170 feet odd. There it is. Stalking around. Now this little thing is quite like this. And Tristan, I remember when he was following them from one den site to the other, Thandi was trying to get the cub to come with her. And Tristan described her as being quite rebellious, which she is, of course. Now, consulting detective, you're wondering how much I think that cub weighs. I would say in the region of 1.5 kilograms, so almost 2 pounds. Not much more than that, if that. It's a very small thing. Maybe a bit more. Let's call it 2.5 kilos, in fact. Just trying to think of a sort of iron mass. Let's go with 2.5 to 3 kilograms, so about 6 pounds actually. I think 1 kilogram would be much too light actually, but it certainly wouldn't be heavy. She probably weighs in at around about 40 kilos. She's a good sized female leopard for this area, and 40 to 45 kilograms would be what you'd expect her to weigh, which is around about 100 pounds. Remember, so many of these mass estimates that have been made are not based on actual measurements, it's guessing. And as I say, this wonderful mammal book that I use, if you can soldier through the extremely dry text in it, it's great because it tells you how many animals have actually been weighed or measured or sampled. And if you look at a table of leopard masses, in fact I'll try and find it for this area, you'll find that they've probably only weighed around about 20 or so animals, and so to give an average mass from that is quite difficult. The other thing you'll find is that many of the guidebooks you read are often not based on sort of science. What happens is that guides like me come up and theorize about interesting things and what they think's going on, and it's not based on science, and eventually it becomes basically it becomes law, or it becomes part of legend, these facts and things that guides throw around. A classic example being that impala are able to hold their babies for favourable conditions, which is absolute nonsense. But it's the kind of thing that gets itself into books even, because guides keep talking to themselves about it again and again and again. So I'll try and find out exactly what the range of mass is in this particular area while we do that. The baby lion, which is substantially heavier than the baby leopard, is up and about.
Sorry about that little technical glitch. I hope that's all sorted out. This little lion cub is in fact a bit bigger than that little leopard cub, and also much, much heavier, of course. And it keeps wandering away from Mum and investigating the vultures, and when it does, Mum tries to call it back, and then it comes back, and then lies down, and then gets bored, and gets up, and goes back. And now, as you can see, it is flat, flat, flat next to its auntie. Now, Mum is still busy trying to get as much of that kill as she can. She obviously needs the nutrients. She's still nursing this little one, although this little one still is going to eat meat. Mother's milk is still extremely important at this point, very similar to what's happening with Thandi and her cub, although her cub will be having much more milk than meat at this time. Can we hear her breathing and her trying to chew on this carcass? Lady Starfire, good question. You're curious to know how long will the lions stay with the kill after they've eaten. Basically, Lady Starfire, as you're seeing now, they're going to try and get as much of it off of it as they possibly can. I've seen lions even stay with a kill that they really aren't eating off of for about half a day after it's completely gone before they move off. Just depends on how much other activity is around. So I think one of the reasons why these lionesses, other than the fact that this one is still nursing and needs the nutrients, one of the facts that these lionesses are still sticking around as close as they are to the kills because all these hyenas are here, and lions are very greedy. They don't necessarily want to let anything else come in. If the hyenas weren't around and their presence wasn't known, they might have decided to move off already this morning. Although that being said, I'm not quite sure when the last time they ate before this. So if they hadn't eaten at all for, say, a week or so before this, which can happen, then they're going to stay with it a little bit longer and really try and milk the whole scenario. Mike, you'd like to know if lions ever get sick from eating old meat. Mike, I've never seen lions get sick from eating old meat, nor a leopard, nor a hyena. Their stomachs are much better than ours. I've been with lions and with leopard with large carcasses from elephant and rhino that have died from other reasons, and they've found it weeks after it's been dead and punctured it and still gone and eaten that really, really rotting flesh. So the stomach juices in there are, they have, you know, what do we call it, cast iron stomachs. Not as cast iron as a hyena, but they've got cast iron stomachs. What I have seen them get, I wouldn't say sick, but it upsets them a bit, is if they eat too much cartilage and then their bodies can't process it and then they have to vomit it up. Now this is interesting. This is beautiful action of the carnassial shears, those molars in process. See how she works her tongue in there as well. Sort of niggling it off. She's got a little bit of zebra mane in there. This is all the fat that sits there around the base of the mane. We talk about how do you tell if a zebra is healthy, and if the mane's sticking straight up, it's healthy. If it falls over, it means that the fat molecule at the base of the hair has dissolved and it can't keep it upright. So all of this fat here is part of the process of why that mane stays up. And this was obviously quite a healthy zebra. Most of our zebra in the area are healthy. It just was an unlucky zebra. Okay, so while we're busy here with these lions eating what's little is left of the fatty bits of the zebra, let's head on up to Jamie Patterson, who is out in the Masai Mara all alone. Jamie, we're with you. We're just very far away, and she's got a bird that she would like to show you.
A tale of two industrious hammerkops who are busy building their nest at a bridge right close to our camp. Now, I know that Taylor's stopped a few times at this particular pair of birds, but it's still fascinating to watch them go about their process. Perfect. A perfect piece of grass. Nice, Adrian. Wonderful. There we go. I'm not sure if it's the male or the female. Actually, both of them are responsible for the building of what will ultimately be a mammoth structure. Here we go. That's a little bit of the outside layer. Now, eventually, these two will build a nest that earns them the record of the bird that, or the individual pair of birds that build the largest nest. Oh, that stick wasn't quite right. There we go. Slotted in there. Is that right? No, not quite. I think they could teach us one or two things about construction, because if you really closely examine that nest, the way that they pile on the sticks and the twigs, it looks... Oh, there we go. Look, someone else has arrived. Nice little lesson in couples therapy as well. Look at the way that it's constructed. It is so solid and eventually will be absolutely massive. I think most of our regular viewers are familiar with the look of a completed hammerkorp nest. It will eventually be big enough, and I think that's the male on the left, by the way, slightly thicker bill, slightly larger than the one on the right. Will eventually be able to support the weight of nesting raptors or storks on top of it as well. Isn't this incredible? Here we go. Where's that leaf going to go? There. That looks like a good place. Very feng shui. Just where it needed to be. And of course there's a vehicle that wants to come past. Just hold on. I think he's going to try and squeeze to the left of me. Oh, he is. How very polite. Thank you, mister. Thank you very much. Oh, no. It all went wrong. Dropped it. Okay, it's all right. Not irreparable damage done. Yes, that'll do. Is that where it needs to be? I think so. Right. Now, what else do we need to put in our nest? Female's gone off on search of more building material, and the male is basically pottering here at this point. He's really good at looking busy. No, the female just put that there. Okay, all right. No, I concur. It looks better there. Brad, I actually have absolutely no idea how long it will take them to complete this nest. I know that they started probably about 2 weeks ago, possibly a little bit more. I do lose track of time. Oh, that stick looks better there. Does it? You're just rearranging things now. That's what you're doing. You're not actually... You're taking everything that your hammerkorp wife equivalent or mate has put in place, and now you're just shifting it around. Oh, there we go. No, it's definitely the male that's doing all of the shifting around. The female's actually doing the practical application. Is it? I think so. I think that's the female. She's just come in with a serious amount of building material. As for how long it's going to take them to complete this nest, I'm honestly not sure. But the lovely thing, of course, for our new viewers about these live safaris, you've already moved that stick, is that we'll actually be able to follow them day by day by day, and we'll be able to track the progress of this nest. So we'll be able to find out exactly how long it takes them to build it and to complete it. Now, a hammerkorp nest like this, when it's being built, it's a constant work in progress. So they will add to it continuously as they reach their breeding season. This is so cool. Yep, off the female goes once more, doing the practical work. Now, are you going to strut? No, you're going to go and help her. Marvellous. Well done, Mr. Hammerkorp. And off he goes. Ben says they seem like perfectionists. Okay, there's the female over there. Ben, absolutely. But and they are truly committed to creating the
Look at what we've got here. Sorry everybody about that crash cut. Jamie's feed has somehow died, but we've got this little cub now coming back towards Mum. She had climbed a tree a long way away from Thandi. We had just spotted the leaves waving, And it was because this naughty little thing had walked away from Mum so far. Now she's stalking her mother. Now, I believe most of you are discussing what we should call this cub. Well, it's a little early for that yet. So if you are wondering, it's not going to happen. Okay, apparently we're now going to go to an unscheduled broadcast. We're going to join with social media. Go, Kirsten, go. Now, very warm welcome to our new viewers watching. We are sitting here in the Greater Kruger National Park of South Africa, Djuma Private Game Reserve to be more exact, and that, everybody, is Thandi, an almost 10-year-old leopardess, and her little cub, who is now 9 weeks old, just been out exploring and is now come back for a little bit of milk. My name is James Hendry, and it's marvellous to have you with us. You can ask us any questions you like while we're sitting here with this cub. I'm just going to talk very quietly, because this leopardess can be a little bit cantankerous when she doesn't like, or when she hears the sound of vehicles and voices. And so I'm just going to be talking very quietly in respect for the amazing, confiding nature with which she is showing us this little cub. Isn't that precious? Now, some of you will have been watching these broadcasts before, and you'll know that we've been following this cub almost since the day she was born. And now, like I say, she's 9 weeks old, and so the weaning process has begun. And she will shortly have to wean completely off milk, so this will be, she's got about 3 more weeks of milk drinking, after which she's going to have to move on to a largely meat diet, but that will be caught for her, of course, by her mother, long-suffering mother, whose name is Thandi. And you can just see, like all youngsters, needs to have a little bit of a clean now and then. Hello, Barbara. You say, how beautiful. Well, there's very little that is more beautiful than a leopard, especially in the morning light, and especially when there's a tiny little cub. Well, Bill, you say you can't believe how close we are. We're not actually that close. We're probably about, I'm going to say about 40 meters or so. So about 130 feet odd, or 110 feet. And the reason that we are this far away, or the reason it looks so close, is that the camera lens is actually just very effective at getting us in close. Vanessa, you say, is there only one cub? Yes, at the moment. It's unusual that she would have given birth to only one cub, and so it's possible that she lost one, very, very early on. We've only ever seen one cub, though. And this leopardess is quite interesting. The last litter she raised, she had 2. She lost one of them, we think, to baboons. We think baboons killed one of them. And she only managed to raise the one. He's now an independent male called Tamba. He'll only be 20 months old this month, I think. And before that, she has raised a few litters, but normally only one. And Stephen, you say, how many do they normally have? Well, they don't really have a normal number, but most often I've seen 2, sometimes 3. I've never seen a leopardess actually successfully raise 3, though. Normally she'll lose 1, but 2 or 3 would be the average. It's quite possible she only gave birth to just this one. That's very sweet. And she's been doing this all morning, so she'll suckle a little bit. And then what she does is she goes off and plays for a while, and then she gets hungry or she gets nervous and she comes rushing back to Mum. Maria, you say, OMG, so cute, love that animal. Well, Maria, it's certainly worth loving. This is a magnificent creature, is this leopard. Now, Stephanie, you ask a very good question. You say, what is a leopard's biggest threat in the wild? A leopard's biggest threat out here, especially a little leopard like this, is, funnily enough, other male leopards. Apparently, in this region, 80% of cub deaths that happen before the cub is 2 years old are perpetrated by unrelated male leopards. So his or her father, we think, is a leopard called Tingana, who is, I think, pushing 12 this year. He's about a 12-year-old male this year. And if he wasn't around and a sort of marauding male came in here, he could easily kill the cub. Hyenas are a definite threat. They're not very good climbers, and this little cub can climb now, so she'd be relatively safe from hyenas. Lions, always a danger. Lions kill all other predators if they can, and so it really wouldn't be surprising were her little cub to fall prey to lions. But, you know, every day she gets older, she has a better chance of survival. Heather, you say, will this be her last litter because of her age? No, I don't think so. Let's pretend that this little cub makes it to adulthood, so she'll probably go independent between 18 months and 2 years, after which Thandi could easily give birth again, she could give birth, you know, as little as 2 years from now, which would put her at about 13. No, what did I say? 13 or 14, pushing 14. And that's not impossible. That would be old. I would suspect that she's probably got one more litter in her after this. Maybe two. But if this cub was to die for some reason, she'd come into estrus immediately again, and she'd almost certainly produce another cub. I'm just reading here from my little field guide that the average number of cubs in this particular area is about 2.2. So between 2 and 3 is normal. And some say even lower than that, so just below 2 in some research. So between 1 and 2 in some areas, and between 2 and 3 in others. And interestingly, the birthing interval in a lot of research has been even less than 2 years. So, you know, given that sort of 17 months, 18 months, 19 months, it's entirely possible she could have another 2 litters if no fate befalls her. Remember, even though she's an adult, her life is still quite difficult. Barbara, you say this cub looks like she has huge paws. Isn't that the case with all little animals, though? We see their feet and we think, good grief, look how big those little paws are. Think of a puppy running along the beach or something like that. Yes, she does have big paws, absolutely. But that's totally normal. And they always say that about children, you know, especially young boys. They say, well, look at the size of his feet. He's going to be a big fellow. In my case, they said, goodness, look at the size of his feet. He's not going to grow very much. And they were right. But I think she will grow to round about the same size as her mother. Her mother is a good-sized female. She's not enormous. You can imagine how much more milk this cub is getting, given that she doesn't have any litter mates. Now we're going to play a little bit. Find out why Mum is asleep, when clearly there is playing to be done. Get up, Mum, come on. I wish to chew on your neck, or bite your ears. They are so long-suffering, these mothers. She's just cleaning her mum now, actually. That's very sweet. Curly Sue, you make a good point. You said it looks like she's breathing hard. She is. There are 2 reasons for that. One is that it's warming up. 2 is that she has just eaten. Well, not just eaten. There was a warthog. They ate a warthog here yesterday, a baby warthog. So her stomach will be relatively full, which means that with a full stomach like that, she's going to produce a lot of metabolic heat, and she'll need to get rid of that. And the other is, I wonder if there isn't an element of the fact that the cub was suckling that makes her hot, that increases her body temperature somehow. All right, to all of you watching on social media, it's been wonderful having you with us. We are going to close down this broadcast, but if you want to keep on watching, then just Google Safari Live and you can join one of our twice daily safaris, including a continuation of this one. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you soon. All right, everybody. Apparently we are going to go back across the Masai Mara, where Jamie Patterson is sitting with what has been described to me as a hammerhead shark bird thing. Good luck.
We are still with our hammerkops building their nests, and I've been absolutely intrigued watching this entire process. My favorite thing is how they fly in with whatever they've collected, with that crest all raised, as if they are so proud of themselves at what they've managed to accomplish, and so they should be. This is a true feat of engineering. Now, unfortunately, the spot that they've chosen to build their nest on is quite a busy thoroughfare. It's a sort of a narrow bridge where cars can only pass one at a time. So we're going to get a vehicle now. Whoop! There we go. Sorry about that. And that will probably continue throughout this particular sighting. But I'm reluctant to leave because it's just so fascinating. We've actually just been talking about this particular pair and how long it will take them to build their nest. And we've been sort of playing with the idea of maybe 2 months. 2 months or so, possibly even longer. I don't know. It'll be fun to find out. Now, Snazzy, you want to know how you tell the male from the female. I'm relatively certain that the male is larger than the female. Look there, perfect, in profile. Look at the bill of the individual at the back compared to the one in the front. You'll see that it's slightly thicker, particularly at the base, where it joins the front of the face. And I'm relatively certain that that is a male. I confess to never actually having checked the difference between the male and the female hammerkop. I'm going to assume that the male is larger, which is generally the case with birds, except when you're talking about certain birds of prey. In fact, most birds of prey, most owls, and some of the storks as well. But a lot of the time, for the smaller species of bird, the male is actually a little bit larger. I think that's the case, similar to something like a hornbill. You know how you can tell the difference between the male and the female yellow-billed or red-billed hornbill. Just look at the attention to detail here. They have to construct a really solid base. Oh dear, no, it's like playing pickup sticks. That's completely unsettled that entire wall. But okay, obviously it had a better spot over there. It obviously belonged there. No, it's too short. Oh dear. Earlier on I watched the male fly in and drop a whole load of debris on the back of the female. It was highly entertaining. Another vehicle. Now eventually this nest is going to weigh an enormous amount. Sorry, there's an elephant cow behind me. Hello, girl. It's all going here. Hey, big girl, am I blocked? There we go. Tucking that neck. Rising up behind them so they're beautifully backlit. Couldn't be more perfect. Where else do you get this opportunity? And I've watched about, and this is not a criticism at all directed at any of the guides, but I've just watched about 6-7 vehicles drive past with guests, all of whom are under pressure to go off and perhaps look for a lion or some elephants or whatever it happens to be that they're after today. And they just don't have the time to sit and watch the details of the world out here. These small moments are just as exciting. Oh, goodness, here comes another one. Hi, guys. Thank you. These little moments are just as exciting to watch and just as interesting, sometimes even more so, because you really get an idea of the day-to-day lives or day-to-day existence of the creatures, right? Both of them have gone flying off. So as they go flying back towards their nest, bringing more to their construction, we'll keep track of our hammerkorp nest. Let's go across to Steve, who is on bushwalk, which is, of course, the best way of looking at the small things.
It is indeed, and I have found a very small thing growing in the ground. I wasn't going to do this tree today, folks, but I found the baby of a very cool tree, a tree that we see all the time, a tree that comes out of one of these. I'm sure you all know what this is. I picked this up close to camp. This is the fruit of a marula, and what we have found is a little baby marula. Isn't that just precious? You can tell it's a marula by the fact that the leaves are compound, which means they are divided. This entire piece here is a leaf, and it has got a terminal leaf lit on the end. And the leaves are a little bit grey in colour. And that's an easy way to identify them. It does take a bit of practice, but we don't find many babies around, and a lot of people attribute the decline in marula populations to elephants because of the damage, but you don't see any babies coming through, and that's primarily because of impala and small browsers that walk through, and they just browse this entire thing. So I'm not going to hurt this little guy, but what can be done with leaves is if you have any form of heartburn, you can take the leaves themselves and you chew them in your mouth. It is very difficult to chew because it tastes horrible, and then you spit that out, but you swallow the juice, the astringent that comes off of that, and it's very, very good for heartburn if you can swallow it. There are better remedies out there these days for heartburn. And then these lovely fruits is what the elephants are after this time of year. All sorts of animals are looking for them. It's very bitter now that it's green. You want to ideally let this go yellow. So if you can find a whole lot of these, it's best to keep them in the best place I found is to keep a whole lot of them in your car, where they get quite warm and they go yellow and they get quite fleshy and tasty. I'm going to cut it open for you quickly with my trusty knife. And inside it's almost like a lychee, the color. I'm not going to eat this now because it is quite bitter. Well, I will, because I know you love me eating things. It's very bitter right now. You want the skin to be yellow, but what we're looking for inside is the kernel. And like a lot of the fruits that, a lot of the fruits that we grow today have got a seed with a lot of flesh on the outside, and this flesh is what the elephants are after. This is what we are even after, and inside is that kernel. But as I'm peeling off this skin, when the skin is yellow and you peel it, it's actually quite nice to grind it down, and you can use it as a form of snuff. The skin, you can grind it down, use it as a snuff for clearing the nostrils, and it's almost like a tobacco substitute. Some people like to put things in their nose, tobacco in their nose, and that works. But the kernel is in here. It's not very easy to get out without me sucking all this juice off. But the kernel itself inside has got beautiful little seeds, and that is what the squirrels are looking for. And with those seeds, if you take those seeds out, you can actually extract that oil. And I know I've said this before last week, and by extracting that oil, you can make a very nice lip balm for anybody. When you're out here in the African sun, we do get a little bit dry on our mouth. And one thing that I do know about the marula is if you take the fruit with the seeds, so you take this fruit and the kernel with the 2 or 3 seeds still on, and you give it to someone, and that is a very good sentiment of friendship. Matt asks, what's the chances of baby marulas surviving? It's a tricky one, Matt. It is a tricky one. You get a herd of impala that will walk through here, and you won't even notice, but that small little plant will just get eaten. So we don't find many. We've got a couple in our camp that are about as tall as me, maybe a bit taller. That's because they're protected from the elephants and the animals don't come in. But you don't find many of these babies in and around, which is a problem. So yes, we're seeing a decline in the big ones because of elephant damage, but we're not seeing many youngsters coming forward again, which is quite a sad state of affairs. But it's not so bad, but it gets a lot nicer. And when these are yellow, they are delicious, absolutely delicious. And there's nothing to the thought that everyone thinks elephants and baboons get drunk. They don't get drunk on these. Actually, these quite often go straight to the elephant, and they often don't even feed on them. They'll just eat it, break the skin off, feed a bit of flesh, and then the squirrels go picking through the elephant dung to get those wonderful seeds. So, from tasty marulas and baby marula plants, what a gorgeous little guy that is. We're going to be going over to my friend Noel, who still has the Nkuhumas.
I still have the Nkuhumas, but we actually have some really interesting vulture behavior. Most of the time, you see vultures in trees and or flying around, but these hooded vultures have decided that their little spot on the ground, lying down, is exactly where they want to be. And then just behind them and to the right, there are some starlings that are busy collecting the feathers from the vultures that have been, after they've been preening themselves. There we go. And they've been fighting over these feathers, and they've been picking the exact right feather. They're doing it for nesting behavior, for nesting material. But the behavior behind it has been very, very, very interesting. I watched one pick up a feather now and then place it down on the ground, and then the mate came to grab it and then flew off. It's getting all the bits of soil off. It's making sure that it's exactly the way that it wants this feather to be. And it's interesting that you see it just hooked it on the tree there, and before they were just placing them on the side of the termite mound. Very cool. And now he's dropped it. And the mate's picked it up. There we go. So lots of things happening around these lions and hyenas other than the lions and hyenas themselves. Now, the hyenas managed to get a little bit of gumption going and crept 40 meters close as opposed to 50 or 60 meters, and then decided, nope, that's too close, and to move off. They've been chasing each other around a little bit in the back here, biting at each other, stiff tails, but it's getting quite warm, and so a lot of the activity is dying down. Our little cub still can't figure out where she wants to be and what's going to make her comfortable. She's going between licking the carcass to going to say hi to Mum, to trying to say hi to Auntie, who keeps sort of growling at her and telling her to go away, to investigating the vultures. Now she's staring at the hyenas. She's hot and uncomfortable. Kaylee, the actual percentage rate for this particular area I couldn't give you, and it's going to change over every single pride and population across the sub-Saharan part of Africa. What I will tell you is that lions can have up to about 10 cubs. They usually have between 4 and 6, and between those 4 and 6, depending on the area, anywhere from 20% to 80% can survive. I do know a lioness that routinely used to raise all of her cubs. Every single litter, I think, except for 2 in her 15 years of living. And I think that's just the way she was and the circumstances around it. But I believe that the first reports we were getting of these Nkuhumas with these cubs, I think that they had them over closer to Elephant Plains side, was that there was a couple of cubs. This is the first time I've seen this one. I've seen these lionesses, obviously, but the little ones. I believe there was 2 or 3 to begin with, but I could stand corrected on that because I think it was more than one lioness that dropped around the same time. So I'm not quite sure with this particular litter with this female because she didn't give birth here, but I do think this is the one remaining cub. I believe she had at least 2 from what I've heard. So it's not necessarily very good. I've also worked with a lioness who lost every single litter for 5 years in a row due to pride takeovers and mongoose and leopard, and what else happened? Mongoose, sorry, thanks, Phildy. Mongoose, yeah, a slender mongoose, killed it. It was hectic. It was crazy. The Mongai, Fildi, the Mongai. And what else happened there? Hyenas as well. One was even taken by a martial eagle. It was sitting out on a rock. So yeah, she had a tough lot of it. I also worked with a lioness where every time her cubs reached about 3-4 months old, she would just leave them and she would never go back. So it's very, very variable, and depending upon personality and circumstances and situation and weather and climate and so many different things. Cheetah, unfortunately, that is the behavior of the lion, and it suits them well. Remember, they can go up to 2 weeks sort of maximum without eating. On average, they're going to kill maybe once or twice a week, sometimes a little bit more, like 3 or 4 times a week, but that stuffing themselves is necessary. They need to get all that protein in, and they make themselves fat, and then they digest it, over... Now they're digesting it slowly now, but over a couple of days it's going to sustain them. Without stuffing themselves the way they do, they wouldn't be able to function and to survive, unfortunately. I know it looks very uncomfortable, and I'm sure they're very uncomfortable, but they're very happy, trust me. This mom she's found a nice little nook. Oh, James is still with Thandi and her adorable little cubs, so let's head on over to him so that you all can partake in the cuteness.
It has become very cute suddenly, everybody. The cub is trying to play with Mum. Mum is now acquiescing to a little bit of playtime. Interestingly, what I did was I put Ronald on the floor just to see if we couldn't get him to the base of the tree where she was yesterday. Now, that's a good 50 meters from where she is now. She picked up the sound of his engine immediately. So Ronald is not going to be going any further than he's gone now, which is about 3 feet from the car. Their ears are exceptional. I mean, Ron can be a bit noisy when he moves. Anyway, it's okay. Ronald can't be involved in every sighting. That's a very good question from Jojo, very interesting perspective. You say, do I think Thandi is habituating the guides by giving us a signal when she's not happy? Yeah, I guess it's exactly what she's doing. She's saying, that is too close, that is too noisy, that is too much movement, that is too exposed, you are in the way. So yes, I suppose she is. But what's interesting, as Tristan pointed out to me, was that she will... often animals will approach you, and if you stay still, they've chosen to approach, and that's normally fine. It normally doesn't kind of make a difference. But with her, if she approaches you and puts herself between, or puts you between her and the cub, then she blames you for that problem, and she can be quite nasty about it. Tristan's had a few experiences, because he spent, I think, the most time with this cub. He's had a few experiences where she's been taking the cub somewhere, has approached him, walked around him, the cub has scuttled off somewhere else in her rebellious way, and then she's turned around and hissed and shouted at Tristan because he happens to have not moved, but the cub, between the cub and her, they've put him between each other, and she doesn't like that. So she's not very good at taking responsibility for creating a situation that she doesn't like. Very silly girl. Wasn't that a wonderful little sighting? I don't think there's any reason for us to leave here, so I think we're just going to stay right where we are. Unless they both go completely fast asleep, but I think these cubs seldom sleep for very long. Hello, it's me, Pinky Lee. That's your name, I believe, on Twitter. How wonderful. It's me, Pinky Lee. You want to know if she Well, listen to my voice. My voice has got a little bit... I've started speaking normally, and she's immediately reacted to it, actually. I'm going to talk quietly again. It's me, Pinky Lee. You want to know if they can live in the same territories, mother and daughter, when the daughter is an adult? The answer is no, an unequivocal no. They will become less and less friendly with each other. And we used to watch Kruger, who and Thandi's sister, Shadow, meet on the boundary of their territories, not often, but sometimes, and it was not cordial. There were spit bubbles blown and growling and general dissatisfaction. This is fantastic stuff. It really is utterly fantastic. Wonderful. And of course, while this cub has the advantage of extra milk because she's on her own, it does mean that Thandi has to take part in all the play activity, which means the little thing doesn't have a sibling to play with. And sibling playing, of course, takes a huge load off Mum. Her tail takes much less of a beating than it's taking right now. She's going to pounce again. You can look under her tail again there if you want. I'm convinced that this is a female. Noelle is not convinced that it's a female. But time will tell. I've made far too many mistakes to be saying outright that Noelle is mistaken. No, there it is. That's a female. Mike, you say how many leopards can this area realistically support? Mike, it supports as many as it can already, you know. The leopards are very good at filling into an area. There's not an oversupply of hyena or lion in this area, and so that means that if there is a vacant territory, and that it will be occupied, and the size of a territory is defined almost exclusively by the amount of prey there is. So you will find that this area probably sustains the maximum number of leopards that it can. Now, the Sabi sand supports, including cubs, males, sub-adults, and non-territorials, roughly 100 or 90 to 100 animals, leopards. So you can work it out at 15 square kilometers per female. And if there are 60,000 hectares here, that's 600 square kilometers. And so that is 30 female territories. No, that's not. 15 goes into 60. How many times, David? It is 4 times. That's 40 female territories in the area. Let's say each of those females has an average of 1 cub, because some won't have. So that's 80. And then you can divide the number of females by males. You can divide them by 3. So let's call it 10 or so. Let's call it, if we have 40 of them divided by 3 odd. I'll just call it 10 territorial males. So we're already up to 90 odd. In fact, let's not say every female's got a cub. Let's say, including the sub-adults who are going independent, every female's got a cub. So that's 80 plus, say, 10 to 15 males, which makes it 95, plus a few non-territorial males. This is just fantastic stuff. And so, let's put it slightly over 100. Let's call it 110 odd. That would be, I think, a relatively accurate estimate. But then, of course, the territory sizes are a bit bigger away from the Sand River, so you might be able to knock that off by 10 or so. Yeah, let's say between 90 and 100. That is very sweet. And every time I laugh, the mother looks at me as if to say, "What are you laughing at?" Stanley Cubed you say, do cubs without litter mates turn out differently from cubs with litter mates? In other words, do only children turn out spoilt and nasty versus those of us who've had siblings? I don't know. I mean, they do, but whether that's because they would have turned out differently anyway, I'm not sure. I imagine there must be some difference. But you know, Stanley Cubed, the interesting thing about leopards and their siblings is that they don't turn out the same. And although they are born obviously as twins or triplets, they develop their own personalities, which are, I mean, given the amount of actual tuition that goes on between mother and cub, you'll probably find that, you know, that character is largely encoded in the DNA. I know this is not the best picture of a leopardess you've ever had, but I'm not sure that I can move. Shall we try a little move, Darby? And so, Stanley, it's difficult to say. You know, in fact, almost impossible to say whether or not a leopardess or a leopard raised on its own was necessarily different because it was raised on its own, as opposed to because it's just genetically different. And I often like to tell the story, and many of you will know this, of course, from Karula's youngsters, Quarantine and Nkuhumas. I like to tell the story of two males that I knew way back when I started guiding. And they grew up, one of them completely relaxed and calm and easy with vehicles, the other vicious. Not vicious, just really unhappy with cars. And he used to charge at a moment's notice. He'd come from miles away, straight at vehicles. And it made no sense. But they had been raised exactly the same way. They hadn't had any different experiences. And so, you know, whether or not you could put down any of this leopard's adult character traits to the fact that she'd been born or raised alone, I don't know. This is exactly the morning I wanted, everybody. I wanted a morning with this cub and the baby and, of course, you lot, and no other vehicles here. It is just very special that we've had that. Oh no. Isn't that magnificent? You can't believe this. You just sit and watch this all day long. Lilo, you said the leopards have the longest tails of the big cats. No, I don't think so. I think you'll probably find that honour goes to cheetah. Cheetahs certainly have heavier tails. They are quite long, leopards' tails, but I would have still said that cheetah probably have slightly longer tails. This thing is now really, she is very rebellious. Come on, jump on your mum. This is very precious stuff. Let's just keep watching it for as long as it lasts. We must remember, of course, that these leopard cubs are not something that are around all the time. It's a very rare, well, it's not that rare, I guess, in these parts. We're very lucky with the number of cubs we see. But they do grow up so fast, these little things. And they will not always be little. Quite nice that there's another female in the area. You know, we've had Hosana and Tamba. Of course, Hosana's sister, Shongile, would be celebrating her second birthday with Hosana, but she has, unfortunately, we think, shaken off this mortal coil. And so we've got Tamba, who's now 20 months old, and Hosana, who's nearly 2. And they're going to move away eventually. They're going to start roaming wider and wider as they get older, whereas this little thing will probably be with us for quite some time, and if we're very lucky, she will grow up and set up a territory very close to her mother's. Alrighty, we're going to have a brief hiatus from this leopard cub. We're going to go across to Jamie Patterson, who has got something that likes to kill other things in the sky.
Goodbye.